one of the things I wanted to talk about in terms of Kanye West is I think he gets disregarded a lot for being crazy. And admittedly, he is crazy. He says a lot of crazy shit. He's got a huge ego, and he goes off on a lot of things. And I know kind of the start of people like really hating Kanye West was the Taylor Swift incident, where Taylor Swift wins like a VMA or whatever. I don't fucking remember.
Yeah, I think it was a VMA.
And he goes up, and you guys all know. I'm gonna cut you off, let you finish. Beyonce had the best video of all time. He was stated as the abomination of Obama's nation. But yeah, Kanye West gets a lot of flack for that. He ends up disappearing for, I want to say, a year or so after that, and makes My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. He's basically kind of blackballed from Hollywood. People aren't talking to him, aren't listening to him, whatever. He gets kind of shunned out of the limelight.
Yeah.
And in that, he ends up making, in my and Frazier's opinion, his best album,
Yep.
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And there's a lot, and it's one of the reasons why I'm going to just call it Dark Fantasy. It's one of the reasons why Dark Fantasy is one of his best albums. There's a lot of pain in there, as well as ego. When you listen to that album, there's a ton of pain and a ton of ego clashing. I think it's one of the first real instances where you see Kanye's like bipolar is in that album. And it's not as blatant, and he doesn't say it. But to cycle back, I want to kind of defend Kanye in the Taylor Swift moment. And it's something that people don't talk about. Everybody talks about his ego and how selfish Kanye is and how rude he is and all this other stuff. However, I don't think the moment was selfish or rude or driven by his ego at all. Something people seem to forget when they call him egotistical and selfish is that he didn't go up there and say, I have the best video of all time. He said Beyonce does. And whatever his relationship with Beyonce is, here's what I think happened. I think, and he's never publicly said this, but I think Kanye felt that what happened there was racism. I think that he felt that a black woman made one of the most amazing songs or greatest video of that year or all time, and she got shafted for, once again, another white girl. And I think he went up there, and maybe he didn't word it correctly, maybe he didn't do it right, but he went up there and he spoke his mind, and he fought for what he believed was right. Whether or not you think it's right, he went up and fought for what he believed is right, and a lot of people argue that they would do the right thing when the time comes, and I think most people don't. And whether or not you think he did the right thing, he believed he was doing the right thing, and unlike most people, he went up and did it. And although he doesn't say it, if you look on every one of Kanye's albums, on things he's done publicly, race is something that plays a big part in his life and his music. And maybe Frazier knows, I don't know if this is public, I think something other than obvious things. I think something serious, or I think a serious race-related thing happened to Kanye in his past, maybe in his childhood or whatever. But you can hear it on all of his albums, all the way to his first one. The song I mentioned earlier, Spaceship, he's talking about everything I said earlier about not being appreciated in like the workplace, all this other stuff. But also he says, oh, now they love Kanye, putting them all in the front of the store. And like, he talks about how he is the black worker, and like, he doesn't get appreciated or respected until other black people come around. And now he's their token salesman or whatever. Yep. Like, he doesn't get appreciated until other black people are around. And so I think throughout his whole career, he's talked about race issues. The whole George Bush doesn't care about black people. He's stood out and talked about these things for his entire career. Although I don't think he's ever admitted it or said it, I believe the Beyonce instance is the exact same thing. And something Frazier said earlier is that sometimes Kanye says things or does things that you don't see the effects of till later on.
Yeah.
5 years later, look at all of the black artists and black creators that are boycotting things like the Oscars and the Grammys for the lack of black representation.
Yep. It became a huge movement. And that's been a thing that's been happening in the last years, like you said. And when he first brought it up at those VMAs or whatever in 2009, he was looked at as a crazy person and someone who's off his meds, and he lost his mom, so he's it just they found anything to say of why he would do what he did on that stage. And now it's being shown that he was right. Like a lot of this shit is like race and politics do play a lot of roles in our liberal art, like the arts, like everything that goes on with these award shows and just liberalism in general. It's a thing. It's a real thing. And he speaks about it. He has no problem saying what other people are thinking, but are not brave enough to say. And that's why we need people like Kanye West. Now, granted, not everything that Kanye says is right. Obviously, he has said some things, but
that's
he's
kind
always
of
been a controversial person.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it though, because a lot of times people just say Kanye's crazy because he says a lot of crazy shit. But they end up writing off some of the important things he says, and you end up losing. Because he was 5 years or however many years sort of ahead of the curve in that instance, and everybody blamed him and hated him and all this other stuff. But he was right.
Like, hashtag Oscar so white. Like I remember that was a thing. And then like, if you think about Kanye, this is why it's really hard when people try to cancel him. So I think that he's at the point now where everyone just has to give up on that. Like Kanye is not cancelable. You cannot cancel Kanye. They tried it several years ago when he was running for president or whatever, and Trump, and he said the whole slavery is a choice thing. But I really think that shit was taken out of context. I really think that like the media just spun that, and everyone, the fake outrage, like that's not what he meant. It's very obvious that's not what he meant, and it's just annoying because our culture now, like. And when I say our culture, I mean just like the world, like the internet culture, not Black culture, but just like the internet culture now is obviously it's very hateful. It just is what it is. I'll be honest, hating is fun to do sometimes, and I think that some people take it too far. They don't realize that there's a price to it. Like you are actually attacking a human being. Like yes, it's funny. Some of the comments that you see on the Shade Room, some of the things that you see people throw out. It can be really funny, even though it's hateful. And they probably, they read that shit about themselves. They wouldn't like it, especially coming from thousands of people saying all these crazy things about you and putting you into a box. It fucking sucks, I'm sure. But it's like the reality is people like to hate. And I don't think that Kanye is one of those people who is going to be susceptible to that anymore. I think that after that whole last time they tried to cancel him, it's over for that. Like he's clearly the phoenix that just keeps rising back and coming back. And like I said, Donda's amazing of an album. I didn't expect it. I actually didn't expect it to be this good. And it's really fucking good to me. Like I stand by it. This album is really good. But I didn't expect it, especially coming off of all the nonsense that has gone on in the last couple of years with him and the election and all that stuff and him being friends with Trump and wearing a red MAGA hat and all that. Like I didn't expect his music to sound so good. Following all of that, and then him picking up the baby for like his one performance, another person who was just recently canceled. It's like he is the person that stands up for people who the world tries to throw away because he's almost been thrown away before.
Yeah,
and I think that even goes back to Kanye being told that he couldn't be a rapper.
100%.
He's been discarded before in more ways than one.
Nexus of his career. I don't know if I'm using that. Nexus is used. Fuck you.
Yeah. Just use it.
But yeah, the nexus of his career, everybody, if you listen, I don't remember specifically what album, but if you listen, he has various skits where he talks about it, and it's like, I think it's Last Call. I think it's the end of College Dropout, where he talks about going and talking to Jay-Z and blah, 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 and all this other stuff, and people not signing him and not taking him seriously for his rapping and just all that crap, and throwing him away, and then getting in a car crash and rapping through the wire.
Yep, and then becoming one of the biggest artists, rap artists in general, producers, everything following that. I mean, he's one of the top 5 artists in the world, I feel like.
Also, just on the note, to kind of, I guess, put a ribbon on the overall point we were just saying, when you mentioned when he ran for president, some people, that also goes into his ego, right? I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but if you want, there's a Joe Rogan podcast episode with Kanye West on it. And I watched that, and it really let me into it opened up a bit of his mind to me, like extra, where you watch it and you see his ego. You see that this is a man, on one end you see the ego where it's like, he truly believes that he could become president and change the world. And whether or not that's foolishness or ego or just ambition, whatever. But he truly believes that. But also, as we call him selfish and all this other things, if you listen to the things he says, although the ideas aren't fully formed and it's not completely figured out, he doesn't truly have a plan on exactly how he would fix it. He's talking about helping people, and he cares about people, and he's constantly caught on a struggle of like loving Kanye and having that huge super ego that he has, while also loving people and wanting to help people and care about people. And he truly does like want to help people and do things for people. And he has an idea on how to do that, even if it's not fully fleshed out. And you kind of see him talk in the stream of consciousness away and just spit things out.
Hey guys, if you like this clip, we have full video versions of our podcast episodes available on the IMNerd Patreon, as well as exclusive content.
If you'd like to listen to our full podcast episodes or find us on any other social media platforms, you can do so by clicking the link tree below.